G'day guys, Lachie here. Let me ask you a serious question. Have you ever been sitting at a set of traffic lights, gripping the leather steering wheel of your shiny new Ford Ranger Raptor or that massive Toyota Hilux Rogue, feeling like the absolute king of the road, only to check your banking app while waiting for the green light and realize you've got less cash available than the bloke next to you driving a 1998 Toyota Corolla with peeling paint? If that stings a bit, mate, don't worry. You've just accidentally joined the fastest growing club in Australia. It's not the Qantas Chairman's Lounge, and it's definitely not the local RSL Members Club. Congratulations, you are what financial experts are now calling car poor. And let me tell you, down here in Australia, we have turned car poor into an absolute art form. We are obsessed. We don't just buy cars anymore, we buy tanks. We buy these massive dual cab utes that are big enough to tow a house, even though the only thing we are towing is a bag of potting mix from Bunnings on a Saturday morning. My name is Lachie, and on this channel, we talk about how modern life in ounce seems designed to separate you from your hard-earned plastic notes in the most creative ways possible. If you're tired of feeling like your 4x4 actually owns you instead of the other way around, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Give the like button a wallop if this video helps you realize you're not going crazy. The system really is rigged. Here's something that might shock you, or maybe it'll make you feel slightly better about your own financial hangover. Nearly 1 in 4 Aussies are officially car poor in 2025. That means their vehicle expenses are stretching their budgets tighter than a pair of budgie smugglers on a bloke who's had too many meat pies. We are talking about ordinary Australians spending an average of 24% to 30% of their monthly take-home pay just to keep their wheels turning. That is double, literally double, what financially stable car owners spend. But hold your horses, because the Aussie version of this problem is unique. We aren't just buying modest sedans. Oh no. In 2025, the top-selling vehicles in this country are almost exclusively Utes and massive SUVs. The Ford Ranger, the Toyota Hilux, the Isuzu D-Max. And here is where it gets properly terrifying. This isn't just about that monthly direct debit that makes you wince every time it hits your account. Car poor Aussies are trapped in a web of expenses that goes way deeper than the sticker price. We are talking about a ripple effect that is destroying financial futures from Bondi to Broome. When I say destroying, I'm not being a drama queen. Vehicle ownership has limited nearly 40% of Australians' ability to save for the big stuff. I'm talking about buying a home, paying for a decent education, or topping up your superannuation. Think about that for a second, mate. 2 out of 5 people in this lucky country are watching their version of the great Australian dream get repossessed, not by the bank, but by their own driveway. All because transportation costs have spiraled completely out of control. The situation is particularly brutal for the younger mob, Gen Z and young millennials. Half of Gen Z in Australia can't afford to get into the property market. They can't afford to invest. Why? Because they are driving their deposit. These are young blokes and Sheilas who should be building wealth, compounding their savings, and planning their futures. Instead, they're feeding money into diesel-guzzling machines that lose value faster than a Golden Gate eye melts in the Alice Springs sun. Now, you might be thinking, oh come on Lachie, this is just bogans buying cars they can't afford. It's their own fault. And look, sure, there's a bit of that. We've all seen the apprentice who buys a $70,000 Land Cruiser before he's even bought a set of decent tools. But the reality is much more complex and, frankly, more disturbing than just individual bad choices. The numbers tell a story of a transportation system in Australia that has become fundamentally broken for the average punter. Let's talk brass tacks. Let's talk about what owning a car in Australia actually costs in 2025, because I guarantee the real numbers are higher than what you reckon. If you are running a new dual cab ute or a mid-sized SUV, the total cost of owning and operating that vehicle has reached a staggering $17,500 a year. Yeah, you heard me. Over 17 grand. That breaks down to roughly $1,450 every single month. That is more than the weekly rent for a decent apartment in some parts of Melbourne or Brisbane. It's a mortgage payment in regional Australia. Even if we look at slightly cheaper cars, we are still looking at nearly $12,000 to $14,000 a year just to have the privilege of driving. For context, that is enough money to take the whole family to Bali for a month, max out your concessional super contributions, or cover your groceries for half the year. Instead, it's disappearing into the black hole of vehicle ownership. Let's break down the monthly repayment. The average monthly car loan repayment in Australia is now hovering around $950 for new cars and $650 for used ones. But here is the part that really grinds my gears. The average price of a new car in Australia? It has cracked the $60,000 mark. If you want a decent 4x4 Ute, which, let's be honest, is what everyone wants, you are looking at $75,000 to $90,000 easily. A Ford Ranger Raptor? You're seeing no change from $100,000 by the time you drive it away. That is a deposit on a house. That is life-changing money. And yet, we see these things parked in every driveway in the outer suburbs. Used cars aren't much better. The second-hand market went bonkers a few years ago and hasn't really recovered. You're looking at $30,000 to $40,000 for something with decent kilometers on it. So, when did reliable transportation become a luxury item that requires financing terms longer than most prime ministers stay in office? Let's talk about the hidden killers of the Aussie wallet. Insurance, Comprehensive Plus CTP. You're looking at an average of $2,200 a year if you're under 30 or living in a major city. Registration, or rego, depending on your state, that's another $800 to $1,000. Fuel. Have you seen the price of diesel lately? It's hovering around $2.20 a litre. If you're driving a Ranger or a Patrol, you are burning through cash literally every time you touch the accelerator. And don't even get me started on tolls. If you live in Sydney or Melbourne, you are paying a fortune to Transurban just to sit in traffic on the M4 or the CityLink. Some tradies and commuters are spending $80 to $100 a week just on tolls. That is $5,000 a year just for the road. Add in maintenance, tyres, and big 4x4 tyres aren't cheap, mate, and the depreciation. And you start to understand why so many Aussies feel financially suffocated by their beloved Utes. Financial experts, like the barefoot types, recommend spending no more than 10 to 15% of your take-home pay on all transport costs. But reality shows most Aussies are blowing past that recommendation like a peep later in a school zone. The data indicates transportation expenses are averaging around 18 to 20% of overall household budgets. And that is just the average. For car-poor households, we are talking about 25 to 30% or more. Let me put this in perspective with actual Aussie dollars. The median household income in Australia is around $95,000 to $100,000. If you are spending that average $1,450 monthly on vehicle ownership, plus tolls, plus fuel, you are dedicating a massive chunk of your gross income to this single expense category. But remember, that is gross income, before the taxman takes his cut. After income tax and the Medicare levy, that household might be taking home roughly $75,000. That means vehicle expenses are consuming nearly 25% of their actual spending power. Suddenly, that recommended 10 to 15% looks like a fantasy for most working families. The situation becomes even more absurd when you consider the cost of living crisis we are in. A household making $70,000, which is common for retail workers, hospitality staff, or entry-level roles, could easily be spending 35% or more of their income just to get to work. At that point, you aren't just car poor, you are dangerously close to being car broke. Here is where things get really ugly. This might be the most important part of understanding how Aussies get trapped in this cycle. It's called negative equity, or being underwater on your loan. About 28% of Aussies trading in vehicles towards new car purchases in 2025 had negative equity. That means more than 1 in 4 people owe more money on their trade-in than the dealer is willing to pay for it. The average amount of negative equity is hitting nearly $8,500. So, think about this. You drive your old Mazda into the dealership. You still owe $20,000 on it, but the dealer says it's only worth $11,500. So, you are starting your next car purchase already in the hole by $8,500. You are buying a depreciating asset, a new Hilux, while simultaneously rolling over debt from the old car. You are paying interest on debt for a car you don't even own anymore. It is a mathematical impossibility. It's a poverty trap wrapped in shiny metal and new car smell. And the loan industry in Australia? They love it. They have responded to this affordability crisis not by helping you, but by extending loan terms to dangerous lengths. 5-year loans used to be standard. Now, 7-year car loans, or 84 months, are becoming the new normal. Some lenders are even pushing 8-year terms. 7 years. Mate, that is longer than most people keep their iPhones. It's longer than the average Aussie marriage lasts these days. And it is definitely longer than most modern cars will run without needing a major, expensive repair. When you are still making payments on a 7-year-old car that needs a new transmission or has blown a turbo, you start to understand how transportation costs can completely derail your life. You are paying for something that no longer reliably gets you to work, but you can't afford to replace it because you still owe 15 grand on it. This creates what economists call a poverty trap. The cost of being poor makes it expensive to stop being poor. You can't afford a reliable car, so you buy a lemon, or you keep fixing the lemon you have, which costs you money and maybe your job if you can't get to the site on time. The psychology of this trap is particularly insidious in Australia because of our Ute culture. We have convinced ourselves that we need these vehicles. Oh, I need the Raptor for the weekend camping trips. I need the Hilux because I might tow a boat one day. Even though you don't own a boat, you tell yourself you are being responsible by financing a safe, reliable new car instead of dealing with an older Commodore that might overheat. But what you don't realize is that you have just committed to years of payments that will prevent you from building any real wealth. The emotional toll of being car poor extends far beyond the bank balance. It creates stress that affects every aspect of your life. Half of Aussies have delayed necessary car repairs due to financial strain. They are driving around on ball tires in the rain, risking a slide on the motorway, because a set of new tires for a Ranger costs $1,200 and they don't have it. Many car-poor Aussies have fundamentally altered their lifestyles. We are talking about the smashed Avo generation giving up way more than just avocado toast. 40% have cut back on dining out. The local pub Palmer Night? Gone. 30% have slashed vacation spending. That trip to the Gold Coast or over to Bali? Cancelled. People are even cancelling their streaming services, Netflix, KO, Stan, just to afford the Rego renewal. Think about what this means for your social life. In Australia, we bond over food, over beers at the pub, over weekend BBQs. When you can't afford to go out with your mates because you have a $1,200 car payment due, you start isolating yourself. You are working just to pay for the car that drives you to work. It's a hamster wheel disguised as freedom. You become a hermit. And when you become a hermit, you lose the network, the connections, the mates who might help you find a better job or help you out of a jam. It is social isolation compounded by financial stress. Let's talk about the generational impact, specifically for the young Aussies. The great Australian dream of owning a quarter-acre block is already on life support. But car poverty is pulling the plug. When half of Gen Z can't save a deposit, can't invest in shares, can't put extra into super, we are looking at a disaster waiting to happen in 30 years. These young blokes are in their prime wealth-building years. Compound interest needs time. If you are spending $1,000 a month on a car in your 20s, that is millions of dollars lost from your retirement fund by the time you hit 60. The average car payment today represents a much larger percentage of income than it did for our parents. Boomers could buy a Holden Kingswood for a few months' wages. Now, a car costs a year's wages. The ripple effects extend into the housing market. Banks look at your expenses when they assess you for a mortgage. If you have a $900 per month car loan commitment, that drastically reduces your borrowing power. It might knock $100,000 or $150,000 off the amount the bank will lend you for a house. So, that Ute in the driveway. It's literally the reason you can't buy the house to park it in. What makes this tragic is that many young people think they are doing the right thing. They are buying reliable cars. They are paying on time. But the system is rigged. The used car market, which used to be the safe haven for budget buyers, is broken. When a decent used Corolla costs $25,000, we have eliminated the budget-friendly option. Wealthy buyers can still buy new and get the warranties and cap price servicing. But people on limited incomes are forced to pay new car prices for used bombs that have no warranty and high risks. And let's talk about the financing tricks. In Australia, we have this thing called a balloon payment. This is how dealers get you into a car you can't afford. They say, "Hey mate, low monthly repayments. Only $600 a month." But they hide a massive lump sum at the end of the loan, maybe $20,000 or $30,000, that you have to pay in one go after 5 years. When that time comes, most people don't have the cash. So what do? They refinance the balloon or trade the car in for a new one, starting the debt cycle all over again. It is a trap designed to keep you in debt forever. Then there are the 0% finance offers or the 1% comparison rate deals. These look amazing, but usually you pay full sticker price for the car, no negotiating, and you need a massive deposit. For everyone else, you're stuck with 7%, 9%, maybe 12% interest rates. If you are paying 10% interest on a $60,000 loan over 7 years, do you know how much interest you are paying? You are paying tens of thousands of dollars just to the bank. And maintenance? A single major repair on a modern diesel ute can cost thousands. DPF filters, injectors, turbos. If your transmission fails on your Ranger out of warranty, that's $8,000. If you are car poor, you don't have $8,000 sitting around. So you put it on a credit card at 20% interest. And the spiral goes down, down, down. The psychological impact creates a mental prison. You convince yourself, I have no choice. I need a car to get to work. Public transport in my area is rubbish. And look, in many parts of Australia, especially the outer suburbs and regional areas, public transport is rubbish. I get that. But that doesn't mean you need a $70,000 dual cab. You rationalize spending more on your car than on your rent because the alternative feels like social suicide. You don't want to be the only mate at the campsite without a 4x4. Let's look at the opportunity cost again, because this is where the numbers get really spicy. Every dollar that goes into that exhaust pipe is a dollar that isn't working for you. If you're spending an extra $400 a month on a fancy car compared to a basic, reliable runabout, that's $4,800 a year. Over a 20-year period, if you invested that extra $400 a month in a decent ETF or your super fund earning 7% or 8% annually, that money would grow to approximately 230,000 Australian dollars. 230,000. That is enough to buy 3 cars with cash later in life. That is a massive chunk of a mortgage. That is financial freedom. But instead, it's gone. It's turned into smoke and depreciation. The marketing in this country deserves its own special mention. Aussie car ads are masterpieces of manipulation. They show rugged blokes driving up mountains, crossing rivers, towing jet skis. They sell you a lifestyle of adventure and freedom. Unbreakable. Built Ford tough. Oh, what a feeling. But they don't show you the reality. They don't show you sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the M1 at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. They don't show you circling the shopping center car park for 20 minutes because your truck is too big to fit in the compact car spaces. They don't show you crying over your bank statement. They focus on the monthly payment. Drive away for $199 a week. They never talk about the total cost. They use the end of financial year sales to create artificial urgency. By now before June 30th to claim the instant asset write-off. Even if you aren't a business owner, you feel the pressure. The entire system is engineered to get you to focus on, can I make the payment this week? Rather than, can I actually afford this $80,000 liability? So, there you have it, mates. Being car poor in Australia in 2025 isn't just about bad decisions or trying to keep up with the Joneses or the Hemsworths. It is about a system that has turned basic transportation into a wealth extraction machine. It is a machine that is quietly destroying the financial futures of millions of hardworking Aussies. If you are trapped in this cycle, looking at that shiny ute in the driveway and feeling a knot in your stomach, you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not stupid. The game is rigged against you. But now that you understand how the trap works, the negative equity, the 7-year loans, the balloon payments, the opportunity cost, you can start making different choices. Maybe it's time to swallow your pride and downgrade to a second-hand Japanese hatch. Maybe it's time to ignore the ads and realize that freedom isn't a new car. Freedom is having cash in the bank and owning your own time. Your future self will thank you for breaking free from the hamster wheel. If this video hit a nerve, or if you know a mate who is drowning in car payments for his dream rig, share this with them. Drop a comment below. What's the craziest car payment you've heard of lately? Don't forget to subscribe for more no-nonsense Aussie finance chat. I'm Lachie. Catch YA in the next one.